How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Zayin, Daf 17 of masechta Avodah Zarah. Friends, 1 second. I'm gonna rub my nose. Okay, friends. Oh, today's Daf is Givaldig, Mamish. So we're gonna learn some very interesting stories. About some very, among other things, there are going to be some interesting stories. For example, when Rabbi Eliezer was summoned by the heretics and they wanted to kill him. We're going to learn about that story. We're going to learn about heretics a bit. We're going to learn the story about Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya. I think that's a pretty famous story. Yesh koine olamai b'shah achas, which we also learned about the other day. In what context did we learn about it the other day? I can't really remember. Yesh koine olamai b'shah achas. I can't remember. Where did we learn about Yesh koine olamai b'shah achas the other day? Come on. Where are you? Let's go. Come on. No. Come on. Where was that? Here. Okay. Yes. With Katia Bar Shalom. Yeah, I think comes up one other time as well. Okay, Akupanim. And then we get to when Rabbi Elazar ben Perata and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon were arrested by the Romans. Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon was the father-in-law of Rabbi Meir, the father of Bruria. He was ultimately, unfortunately, sadly, as we're going to learn about tomorrow, he was one of the 10 martyrs. He was arrested and then murdered by the evil Roman regime. So we're going to start the story of Rabbi Elazar ben Perata and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon today. So a lot of very interesting things on today's daf. Here we go. We're going to start on daf Tes Zayin Yes, we are. We're going to start on daf Tes Zayin Amid Beis, about 10-15 lines from the bottom, about 5 or so lines before it gets wide. At the two dots, ein bonim v'chule. We don't build like basilicums or something. I don't know. But basilicum in Hebrew is basil. Or I think they say in England, basil. I think. Janine, what do they say in England? Basil? What about in South Africa? All right. Omer Rabba Babachana, Omer B'yechonon, Gimel Basilkoyes. Hey, there are 3 kinds of basilicums, even though that's not the word. I don't think. Why would it be basilicum? But whatever. I don't really know what this thing is anyway, so it's basilicum. The 3 kinds of basilicums are Shamalchi Ovdei Kochavim, for like idolater pagan kings, Vishel Merchatzos, and bathhouse basilicums, Vishel Otsaros, and storage house basilicums. Amrava Beis leheter ve'echod le'isr. 2 of them are permitted, 1 of them is forbidden. V'simen le'esor malcheim bezikim, as we say in Shacharis in the morning, le'esor malcheim bezikim. So that's like a hint, kind of le'esor malcheim, which is the one that's also the basilicum for the kings. V'kedam, those who say Amrava kulam leheter, all of them are permitted. V'atanan ein bon anymore in basilke garden mitzade uvima. But the Mishnah says that basilicum is one of the things that we don't build with them. So emishal garden v'shal itztadia v'shal bima. No, say the garden, itztadia, and bimas, those are the ones that aren't allowed. Garden is like some kind of courthouse, and itztadia is a stadium, bima is a platform of sorts. Okay. So the solution is just take out basilicum from the Mishnah, and then it becomes a permitted thing if you just take it out. Okay, here we go. Tonu Rabbanot. The rabbi thought Kshenitpas Rabbi Eliezer leminus, when the Tana Rabbi Eliezer was arrested by the heretics. He'eleu legardim lidon, so they took him to this courthouse to be judged. This is not a place that you wanted to go to. Scary place. They'll just chuck you off the roof kind of place, I think. Also, Hegemon in the Shmendrik in charge says, why would such a great person, an elder like you, why would he be so busy with narishkeit like learning Torah? And Rabbi Eliezer says, the judge is believed upon me. Kisavar also Egmon Olav Womer. And the Shmendrik, the heretic Shmendrik, anyways. So the Shmendrik thought that Rabbi Eliezer was referring to him. Rabbi Eliezer was saying, oh, I think you're awesome. But in fact, of course, Rabbi Eliezer was speaking about his Father in heaven. But because the Shmendrik thought that Rabbi Eliezer was referring to him, that he, the Shmendrik, is a great guy, so the Shmendrik says, all right, you can go home. And when Rabbi Eliezer was released and he came home, so his students came to cheer him up. But he didn't accept the cheer up because he was very distraught. He said, why would I would I have been arrested for heretical stuff? Is it possible that I did something heretical, but I can't think of anything heretical that I may have done? So Amar Lo, Rabbi Akiva, so Rabbi Akiva says to his Rebbe, Rabbi Eliezer, Rebbe, Tarsheni lo amar davar echad. Rebbe, can I please say something? From what you have taught me. Amalei Emer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Zokt. Amalei Rebbe. And Rabbi Akiva says, Rebbe, Shema minus baliyadcha vihin ocha. Maybe one time you experienced some heresy and it was acceptable to you in some capacity. V'olav nitpasta, and maybe because you obviously didn't do heresy, but some heretical thing happened and you were kind of okay with it, and because of that, that's why you got punished and that's why you were arrested. Omar Loi, and Rabbi Eliezer responds, Akiva, he's Kartoni, you taka reminded me. Pamachas, one time, bashuk ho'elyon shel tzipori, I was walking, I was strolling, I was spaziering in the upper shuk of Tzipori. Umatzasi echad v'yankevish kvar schanya shmoi. And a Shmendrik, a heretic, found me. And this heretic's name is Yankiv Ish Kvar Schanya. Omar Li, and this Yankiv Shmendrik says to me, Kosav b'seiraschem, it's written in your Torah, Loisavi esnan zona v'gomer. Don't bring a harlot's payment to the Beis HaMikdash in the form of a korban or imagine any other kind of donation. Do not bring esnan zona to the Beis HaMikdash. But frekt, this Yankov Shmendrik, what about, the Kohen Gadol before Yom Kippur? So he was quarantined for, I think it was a week before Yom Kippur. What does Rashi say? Is it Yom Kippur? Okay. Anyways, so he had to, of course, have a bathroom there in his quarantine facility. So can you use Esnin Zona to pay for the bathroom of the Kohen Gadol for when he's in quarantine prior to Yom Kippur? And Rabbi Eliezer did not respond. Omali, Kach Limdoni, and there's a note which adds, Yeshua Notzri. And Yankif, the heretic, says, well, this is what Yoshke taught me. Now, if you think about it, Rabbi Eliezer Taka lived, I'd say maybe one generation after Yoshke. I looked on Wikipedia. Yoshke was born something like 5 years before the year 0, and was killed in the year, I think, like 30 or something. And the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed in the year 70. Rabbi Eliezer, I think, was alive during the second Beis Hamikdash at the end. So this story was happening post. I assume that this was happening post Second Temple. I assume that Rabbi Eliezer was alive at the end of the Second Temple. I can't think of any proof for that right now, other than the fact that I know that Rabbi Yoshua was alive during the Second Temple, and they were like kind of contemporaries. Rabbi Eliezer was also a student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was alive during the Second Temple. Anyways, so, I mean, I assume that Rabbi Eliezer ben Orkanus was probably, so he was probably born, or, sometime before the year 70, and Yoshke died in the year, I think, 30 or 40 or something. So, I mean, Rabbi Eliezer, like those, that's kind of interesting to think. I mean, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yochanan ben Azariah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai must have been around when Yoshke was around. Sheesh. So this Yankiv fellow, he says that Yoshke taught him the following shtickle. Ki mi esnan zona kibotza vad esnan zona yoshuvu. That the pasuk says in Micha that it was gathered from a harlot's wage and will return to a harlot's wage. Mimakom atinofes bo, they came from a dirty origin. L'makom atinofes yelchu, they will return to a dirty landing spot, destination. And therefore, with that sort of svara of it came from a dirty place, goes back to a dirty place. So if this was Eston Zona, it can be used to build a lavatory. Vihin onya adavar. And Rabbi Eliezer says, Taket, I thought it was a Shena Svar. And it was because of this that Taka thought it was an interesting Svar, and it was a good taich. Al Yedei Zenit Pasti Leminus. That is why that is how I got caught up. Right? That was kind of, that's why I got arrested just now. It was that anecdote, right? That thing that happened was kind of my heretical moment, just for kind of thinking that was a interesting explanation to the verse. And by doing so, I violated that which is written in the Torah. Where is this? This is in Mishle. Distance your ways from it. Zominus. That's a reference to staying far away from heresy. And do not come close to the door of its house. Zoharoshus. This is like the authorities, because the authorities steal. Those who say that when it says distance your ways from it, that's a reference to heresy and authorities. And do not come close to the entrance to its house, that is a reference to a harlot. How far do you have to distance oneself from a harlot? Chizda says 4 cubits, 4 amas. So how do the rabbis understand this pasuk from Micha of Me'esnan Zona Kibatz Vad Esnan Zona Yashuvu? Right? This heretic explained it by saying that something from a dirty source returns to a dirty destination. And Rabbi Eliezer Taka thought that was a good explanation. But that's Rabbi Eliezer opinion, and also that was clearly problematic because it was heretical. So how do the other rabbis understand this verse? Any harlot who is initially hired will, in the end, I guess, no longer be desirable and will have to hire others, if they want to be sexually active, Shenemar, as the pasuk says, uve sitech esnon ve'esnon lo nitein lach, you're going to give the wage, and you will not receive the wage of a harlot. Fatila efech, and it will be the opposite, right? You initially would receive, and now you are paying. Ufliga the Rabbi Pedas, and the 4 amis requirement argues with Rabbi Pedas. Rabbi Pedas lo aser teda ela kreva shel gilu arayis bilvad. It says Rabbi Pedas that what's awesome from the Torah is only getting close in a prohibited manner, right? In a sexual manner. But you could be 2 amis away. You don't need the 4 amis. Shneimar ish isha kosher b'sar l'sikru legalu serva. Don't come close to have a forbidden relationship, but that's why you can't get close. But to simply get close would be okay. Ula ki ava osim beirab have menashik lula achte abe yodayu. When Ula would come home from the Beis Hamedrash, he would kiss his sister on her hands. Ve'amri la abe chadayu, some say on her chest. And I guess the point was that was not sexual, and therefore, I guess it was permitted. But that actually argues with another position of his. Damar Ula that says Ula kriva ba'alma osir. That Ula says that even just getting close is forbidden. That we say to a Nazir, go away, do not get close to a vineyard, because of course a Nazir is forbidden from eating grapes. So we say to a vineyard, we say to a Nazir, stay far away from a vineyard. So also we would say stay far away from a rice. La luke shtei bonis hav. The pasuk says in Mishlei that to aluke, which Tosfos says gives 2 explanations. The first one is that's a reference to hell. Shtei bonis has 2 daughters. Hav, give. My hav. What's give? Mar ukve says mar ukve kol shtei bonis shetziakas migehenim. It's the voice of 2 girls, of 2 daughters that are crying out from hell. The omris ba'olam hazeh, and they say in this world, have, bring, umaninu, who are those 2 daughters? Minus, heresy, ve'aroshus, and authorities. Those who say, Amar of Chizde, says of Chizde, Amar Ukve, kol gehenim, it's the sound of hell, shetzoekes, which calls up Amers and says, Avilu shtei bonis, bring me those 2 daughters, shetzoekes, are almost that yell out and say, in this world, have, bring people for heresy, bring people to pay us authorities stuff. Says the pasuk in Mishlei, Kol ba'eh lo yeshuvun, all those who come to it will not return. V'lo yasigu orchis chaim, and will not achieve the ways of life. Well, if they're not going to return, how will they achieve? If they're not going to come back, then how are they going to, if they're not here, how could they achieve anything? So basically, any people who end up being heretics will never return. So ve'im yashuvu, and if they do manage to return, they will not achieve the ways of life. Is that to say that anybody who does tshuva from heresy dies? But that can't be. There was a woman who came before Rav Chizde, and she says to him, I've done some really, really, really bad stuff in my life, and now I want to do tshuva. I've done such bad things that listen to the least bad thing that I've done, and it's pretty bad. Kala shebekalos, mamis, the most innocuous of all innocuous things that I've done. She slept with her older son and then gave birth to her younger son. That she made her younger son together with her older son. That was the most innocuous thing that she's done. So she's done some pretty bad stuff. And Rav Chizda said, okay, well, we should be getting her shrouds. It sounds like she's going to die. I think that's the point. V'lo mesa, but she actually didn't die. And from the fact that we said that this, sleeping with her son to make another son was the most innocuous thing that she did, she must have also been, we can assume that she was also a heretic, and yet we're saying that she didn't die. Well, she didn't really do a proper tshuva. If she would have done a proper tshuva, she would have died. That's why she didn't die. Those who say, Miminus in me'avera lo, to those who ask, wait, we're saying that, right? We said, right? We said that even if they do tshuva, they won't live. That's only the case for heresy. What about arayas? If you do arayas, you will live. It's only for heresy that you won't live. So the comment of Chisda, what about this woman who came to Rav Chizda, va'amar la, and he says to her, Rav Chizda, zvidu zabdasa v'mesa. And in this version, Shitaka died. So here we see that she slept with her son, which is Arias, and she died. So why are we saying it's only for heresy that she dies? Apparently also for Arias, you would die. But answers the Gemara, well, remember, she had said that the most innocuous thing that she did was sleeping with her son. Meaning that she's done worse things, so we can assume that she was also a heretic. So we can say that she died on account of the heresy, not necessarily on account of the arayis. We have very low, okay, but still, we ask, from arayis, you wouldn't die right away? I'll bring you a story which dealt with arayis, and the person did die right away. They said about Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, that there was no harlot in the whole world that he had not slept with, he had not visited. One time he found out that there was a certain harlot in some far flung place. Tell us, kiss dinar b'schar, and her wage was a pouch of dinars. Notel kiss dinar, and that was no problem. He put together a pouch of dinars, v'holach, and he hit the road. The over alel shiva naharos, he had to cross 7 seas, bishvil, or 7 rivers, and he arrived. And b'shas hergel avera, and while they were having bia, he ficha, she passed wind. Amra, and then she said to him, and kishem she'aficha zo eno chozeres limkoma, just like this wind that passed is never going to return. Kach Elazar ben Dordaya in mikablen osa b'tshuva. So too, Elazar ben Dordaya will never be able to repent. And this shook Rabbi Eliezer ben Dordaya. Holach v'yashav ben shnihar mugvais, and he went and he sat. He was feeling very sad, and he sat between 2 mountains and hills. Omri says, "Har mugvais bakshu rachamim." Hills and mountains, can you please pray for me for mercy, that I should be able to repent? Omri, they said to him, wait, we can't pray for you. We have to pray for ourselves. That the mountains are going to, be moved or something, and the hills are going to be unhilled. He says, okay, heaven and earth, please pray for mercy for me. They said, they said, before we pray for you, we must pray for ourselves. Okay. That the heavens are gonna go up in smoke, and the land will unravel, will get worn out like a garment. He says, sun and moon, pray for me for mercy. They said, before we can pray for you, we got to pray for ourselves. That the moon is embarrassed as well as the sun. He says, stars and constellations, please pray for mercy for me. They said, before we pray for you, we need to pray for ourselves. Shneimar, v'nomaku kol tzva hashamayim, and all the legions of the heavens are going to wilt away, I guess. So Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya realized, I'm not getting any help from anybody else. It's up to me. It's up to me. Hinach Rosho ben Birkov, put his head between his knees. Vega'a bivchia, and he wailed in crying. Hachiyotzusa nishmaso, until his soul left his body. Yotzusa basko va'amra, and a heavenly voice emanated and said, Rabbi Eliezer ben Dordaya mizumin lechayeya olam haba. Rabbi Eliezer ben Dordaya is invited to the life of the world to come. Wow. It's not fact the Gemara. Here, this was Arais. And he did tshuva and died right away. Hosam Nami came to Ovik Batuva Kiminus Damya. Well, since he was mamish in the world of Arayas, mamish been to every single prostitute in the world, it was like a form of heresy, and that's why he died right away. Okay. Bacha Rebbe v'Omar, Rebbe Yehuda Anosi cried and he said, Yesh koina elama b'chama shonim, yesh koina elama b'sha achas. Some people acquire the world to come, it takes many years. And some people can acquire the world to come just like that, in one moment. But my Rebbe and said, Rebbe, lo dayin the balei tshuva shemekablin osan. Not only do we accept repenters, do we accept balei tshuva, elo shekorin osan Rebbe, and we call them Rebbe, right? As it says, right? The Baskol said, Rebbe Elazar ben Dordaya mezum l'chayu lamaba. Right. When he did tshuva, he was mamish called a Rebbe. Ooh, what a mice. What a mice. What a mice. Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yonason, Avuko Azle Ba'orcha, Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yonason were traveling tzazamen. Matu lahanu trei shvile, and they arrived at two paths at a crossroads. Chad potzi apischot avedas kechovim, chad potzi apischot vezonis. One path crossed by an opening to a temple of sorts, of paganism, and one road passed by an entrance to a brothel. One of them said, so one of them says, let us take the path that passes by the temple, because as we learned in masechta Sanhedrin, that the Anshe Knesset Gedola prayed that the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah should go away. If you remember, the Samach Daled Masechta Sanhedrin. So the other one says, Fakert Neza Apischa Devezonis, let's take the path that passes by the brothel. V'nichpai liyitzav v'nikabel agra. That way, by choosing to not go in, we will fight our evil inclinations and we will get rewarded for doing so. Which sounds like a risky thing to do. So Kimatu Asum, and they went that way, and they took the path that went by the brothel. Chazinu Lizonis is kind of Kamayu, and what they saw was an interesting thing, that all of the harlots, instead of coming out to greet them, they went inside and hid away. Amalei min halacha, to which the one who suggested that they passed by the temple said, how did you know that this was going to happen, that there wouldn't be any issues, that they would go inside and we'd pass by b'shalom? Amalei, So the one who suggested to pass by the brothel responded, Mezima tishmar alecha tvuna tinsureka. Amarle Rabboni Rava. The rabbi said to Rava, my mezima. What's mezima? If it means Torah, that the Torah, right? Mezima tishmar alecha, that right, that the Torah is going to protect you. Tichsid zima, because it says in the Torah zima. Mitagminan atzos chetin, and the translation, the Aramaic translation for zima is atzos chetin, advice of sinning. Uchsev hifli eitza. Higdil tushia, about the Torah, it says eitza. So maybe mizima is reference to Torah, but yachi zima mi ba'alet. Should say zima, not mizima. So chikamar mi devar zima tishmar alecha Torah. What it means is that from zima, from I guess zinus, the Torah will guard you tinsereka. So there is a opinion that you could take out the word tinsereka because that was connected to bina. But okay, fine. So the Torah saved him, and now the story of Rabbi Elazar ben Perata and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon. So one of the rabbis said, "Kishenitfisu Rabbi Elazar ben Perata, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon." That when Rabbi Elazar ben Perata and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon were arrested by the evil Romans, Rabbi Elazar ben Perata, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon. So Rabbi Elazar ben Perata says to Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, "Ashrecha shenitpasta al davar echad oili shenitpasta al chamisha dorim." Rabbi Elazar ben Perata is looking at the charge sheet and he says, "Sheesh, I'm in big trouble. I was arrested for 5 violations. You, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, were arrested only for 1 violation." Rabbi Chanina responds to Rabbi Elazar ben Perata, "Ashrecha, fortunate are you, shenitpasta al chamisha devarim, v'ata fortunate are you that you were arrested for 5 offenses, but you will be spared. Oili, but woe to me, shenitpasta al davar echad, that I was arrested for only 1 thing, ve'eni nitzol, and I will not survive this." Of course, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon was one of the 10 martyrs. Because you, Rabbi Elazar ben Perata, not only were you osek b'Torah, but you were also osek b'gmilus chasadim, good deeds. V'ani lo asakti elo b'Torah bilvad. But I, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, only was osek b'Torah, but not b'gmilus chasadim. And like Rav Huna says, the Amar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna, kol osek b'Torah bilvad, somebody who only is osek b'Torah, but doesn't do gmilas chasadim, dome kamisha eno Eloah, it's like he has no God. Shenemar v'yomim rabim liyisrael lo Eloi emes v'gomer. That the pasuk says that there were days for Israel that there was no God, and it says after that, v'lo Torah. It says after that, Ulilo Torah, which means that the first part, when it says that there's no God, it's even though that there is Torah, there's no God because there's no Gemilas Chasadim. That somebody who only studies the Holy Torah and doesn't do Gemilas Chasadim, it's like he has no God. Wait, but you're telling me that Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon did not do Gemilas Chasadim? We learn Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Lo yiten odama osav la'arniki shal tzedakah. Elohim kain, a person shall not entrust his money with a charity collection. Elohim kain memuna all of Talmud Chacham Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, unless the person in charge of that charity is somebody like Chanina ben Teradyon. So we see Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion's name in the context of charity. Well, yeah, he was really trustworthy. We're saying that you're going to want to have somebody in charge who's as trustworthy as Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, but it doesn't say that he was actually the one who was in charge. He wasn't. He was busy learning all the time. But we learn in a brayso, Amalo Mo shall purim nischalfuli, but Mo shall tzedakah v'chilaktim la'aniyim. But as we're going to learn tomorrow, an incident, right, a discussion with Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, that says Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, he's talking about a scenario, whatever. Basically, he was entrusted with both the charity money for the poor people, but also for the Purim money There's different opinions of what it is. But anyways, we see that he was taka involved in charity and gmilas chasodim. So mi'abed ovad kidaboy lo avad. Well, yeah, he did do the charity, he was involved in charity, but not to the extent that he could or should have been. Okay. Asur Rabbie Elazar ben Perata. So now they took in Rabbie Elazar ben Perata for questioning. They said, "My time tonis, my time gonapta. How come you were studying Torah? How come you were stealing?" Rabbie Elazar ben Perata says to them, "Wait a second, that doesn't make sense. Isaifa lo safer, visafer lo saifa. I don't get it. If I'm busy stealing, then when was I learning? If I was busy learning, when was I stealing? I couldn't have been doing both. And therefore, the halesa onami lesa. And therefore, if I could have only done one of the things that I'm accused of, which means that I didn't do the other thing, well, the whole thing is kind of, sketchy. And just like I didn't do one of them, I also didn't do the other. Your source is unreliable." My time of Karulach Rebbe. Okay, but why did they call you Rebbe then? Rabban Chaltasiyamani. He says, "Oh, I'm just, I'm the head of the weavers." They said, "Oh yeah, you're a weaver? Is there a special name for a weaver?" I wonder. Aisule tre kibure. So they brought for him two bundles of thread. They said, "Okay, which is for the warp and which is for the woof?" And he didn't know, but a miracle happened. Borisa, a female bee, a beeus, came, Osiva al deshasya, and sat on the warp. Zibura, and a male bee came, Vyosef al te'arva, and sat on the woof. He says, "Hi, deshasya, hi, the arva." He says, "This one is the warp, and this one is the woof." My time alone, I said the Be'avidan. Well, how come you didn't come to the Be'avidan? I think in masechta Shabbos we said that the Be'avidan was some kind of place where they would debate, about religion, try to prove Judaism wrong and stuff. But here it says Baisha Ochlim v'Shosim l'chvod avodas kochavim, some kind of I don't know, some kind of kretschmer for some kind of place where they love doing Avodah Zarah. Okay. Anyway, so how come you don't go there? How come you don't come to our Be'avidan establishment? So Omar Lewis, he says to them, I'm too old. Maybe you're going to trample me. If I go to the Be'avidan, maybe I'll get trampled. It's dangerous. So they said, I don't know what we're unaware of trampling issues in the Be'avidan. That's baloney. You're not going to get trampled. Who's ever gotten trampled in the Be'avidan? Nisa, a miracle happened. How Yoma Irma Schad Sava, the Taka, that day actually just so happened to be that an old person was in fact trampled at the Be'avidan. So there you have it. Case in point. My time of Koshavakto, and how come you freed your slave? I guess that wasn't allowed. Amalu says to him, that never happened. But then one of them got up to testify about Rabbie Elazar ben Perata that I guess, I don't know, he did sell his slave or something like that. Also, Eliyahu in Melech Echad Mechashuvi the Malchusa, but Eliyahu Hanavi came, Elijah the prophet came, and he looked like a very important person from Rome. Omar Lein, he says to this person who stood up to testify against Rabbie Elazar ben Perata, look, they've accused him of 5 things. There have already been, he's managed to get out of 4 of them. You're not gonna win this. Clearly, he's gonna get out of all the charges. He's also gonna have a miracle here on this 5th accusation. He's gonna get out of it. You're gonna lose. And you, you're just going to be causing problems, and it's not going to be good. But this fellow did not listen. And he got up nonetheless, and he was going to testify against Rabbie Elazar ben Perata. Now, it just so happened that there was a very important letter that needed to be delivered to the Caesar. Gavra, and this person who was about to testify against Rabbi Elazar and Perata was selected as the person who needs to go deliver the letter. They said, this is more important. Get out of there. Get out of here. Go deliver the letter. At which point, while this fellow was on the road, traveling to the Caesar, Eliyahu went and gave him a knack, and he flew 400 parses and was never seen again. We're going to hold it here now. Tomorrow we're going to continue. We're going to pick up with when they interrogated Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon and some other interesting Gemaras. Tomorrow, this was an interesting daf Yud Zayin, masechta Avodah Zarah. We learned about the story about when Rabbi Eliezer was arrested and other interesting things about heretics, and shtickle about Yeshu, Yoshke. We learned the story of Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya. And then we also learned about the story when Rabbi Elazar ben Perata and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon were arrested and the beginning of their interrogation. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.